We're live, so we'll call the meeting to order. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hope you're having a good one so far. Yeah,
Snow's pretty this time of year.
it is pretty this time of year, especially when you know it's going to be gone by lunchtime. We respectfully acknowledge that we live and work in Mi'kmaq as the steward of the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. Now, the approval of the agenda and order of business. I'm well aware that we have a couple of additional district grants on the agenda. And just on the side of in camera, we have a few additions there. Three additions: the EPR, land purchase, and an additional personnel matter.
And Councillor Bremner.
And Councillor Bremner, yes.
Warden Weber, I'd like to make a report on the Fire Advisory Committee.
Okay,
Thank you.
fire advisory.
I would like to raise code of conduct for presenters.
Code of conduct. Okay. Anyone, anything else?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Moved and seconded. Councilor Asif, Councilor Bremner. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Public input. Anybody who doesn't have an appointment wish to speak this morning? Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting, Council, March the 13th. Errors or omissions? Someone prepared to move the approval? Moved by Clarissa. Seconded by Sharon. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Public hearing, Maple Cottage. Errors or omissions? Moved by Tom.
Second.
Second by Abdallah. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Public hearing, Village of Chester Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw. That's just a motion to approve the minutes.
The minutes, yeah.
So moved.
Moved by Abdallah, seconded by Sharon. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. Proclamations and designations. Proclamation request, Gaelic, Nova Scotia. Anybody have any particular issues or concerns with that? It meets policy?
Yeah, so this is a proclamation as well as an application for a flag raising.
Somebody prepared to move, we approve it? Moved by Clarissa, seconded by Sharon. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, committee reports. 7.1, nominating committee.
Thank you, Warden Weber. Through you to the council, we met on February 13th, and we had several committees to fill positions. For the Anti-Racist and Discrimination Committee, we have filled that position with Councilor Church. With the appointment to the new Recreation Steering Committee, we appointed myself and Councilor Coolin.
Yep.
And for the alternate Regional 6 intermunicipal committee, which is the Waste Committee, we have appointed the deputy warden, or deputy warden Asif. And that was our meeting.
Somebody prepared to move, we accept those recommendations?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Councilor Asif, seconded by somebody, please. Seconded by Church. Discussion?
Yes. I respectfully understand that it's hard to put, us in subcommittees and nominating committees and the hard job that it is to be chair of that committee, Councilor Bremner. However, it's on my understanding that within these subcommittees, it's not a question of putting puzzle pieces together. It's a question of who is best served on that committee. And I know for a fact that there is another councillor that requested to be on the rec committee. I will sit on that committee with pride, but I believe that it should be some consideration for someone who actually puts their hand up and say, I would like to be on the committee, and was not even considered. I could be an alternate, and I can certainly respectfully, as the decision is conformed, that I could stay on that committee, but it needs to be addressed, and thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Yep.
I'm happy to do it. If you wanna, if you'd like me to be there, and I think that I have a background in this area, so it probably wouldn't hurt to put me on the facilities committee.
Is it something that you requested, that you would volunteer to do?
I think it was, I don't, if I'm being honest, I'm not sure that the committee was aware before they met.
Fair enough.
And I was a few minutes late. I was actually supposed to be part of the committee, but I was a few minutes late, and
Oh,
they were, as I was pulling in, they said, oh, it's all over, because the meeting only took a few minutes, so.
Information is great. I now
Yeah,
have all the
so,
information. Thank you.
but, I'd be happy to do it if that is the will of council.
Well,
No objection.
Warden Weber, through you to the CAO, is that an appropriate step that we can change with an agreement of council and the two?
Yeah, it's, the recommendation from the nominating committee is a recommendation if council wishes
council
to
can
take a
always
different.
change it.
I do appreciate Councillor Coolin, your comments, and Councillor Reno, because unfortunately I was not aware that you were interested until afterwards.
Yeah,
And we had completed our process. I move the adoption of, then we switch with, sorry, I make a amendment to that we switch from Councillor Coolin to Councillor Vino for that steering committee.
Okay. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Discussion?
Yeah, I would like to, obviously, I could stay on as an alternate for that committee. I would appreciate, having the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
I don't think we have appointed alternates, no. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. That's enough, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Recreation and Parks, Councillor Church.
Thank you.
I don't seem to have that.
It should be there.
Yeah, I know it should be. But
We met, and there are some recommendations from
Oh,
the
yeah.
meeting. However, there's, the first two motions need to be adjusted. We did not know this before the meeting, however, there are 5 people from our municipality going to the tournament, not 2. So what we would like to do is split the remaining money, which is $1685, be given to the team to be split between the 5 players, which Briar Froughton and Brielle Robinson are 2, but there's 3 more, Quinlow, Juno Johns, and Harper Broom. So I would change that motion to recommend that the 5 applicants be given $337 each, that the remaining $1685 be divided amongst them. We weren't aware of that when it came to the rec committee.
Okay, so that's your motion?
Yes,
Do we
it
have a
is.
seconder?
And I'd also,
We got to deal with the one
Okay,
motion
sure.
on the table. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Your second one?
and the last motion is to recognize volunteer rep Marginson Reeves from New Ross to represent the municipality at the provincial awards ceremony. And I move that we approve that.
We have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Council Raciv. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
And just the other thing, the committee, when they met, they were very interested in us returning to a little ceremony to recognize the volunteers during Volunteer Week, that we haven't done that since COVID.
Wow, yeah.
And we're not getting, it seems, a lot of participation for volunteers. We didn't have a lot of names this year, so they felt that maybe if there was a little ceremony that we used to do, that people really enjoyed it, that it may create a bit more enthusiasm and people wanting to nominate some of their volunteers. So I don't know whether that's something that the rec department puts in their budget, but they were interested in having that return to try it for, you know, a few years to see if it
Well, we can
improved
just
the town.
refer it to Chad, and he'll come back with whatever the options are for us, yeah.
Yeah, and Kevin Mazark agreed to sit on the rec committee as the rep for the
new facility.
new facility committee.
Okay,
That's it, thank you.
thank you. Heritage Advisory Committee. Forget who that one is.
I'll take
Oh,
that, Warden
okay.
Weber. Thank you, Warden Weber, and I first want to apologize for myself and Deputy Asaph that we set the night afterwards waiting for this meeting, March 6th, due to a calendar mess up on our schedule, so I do want to apologize to the committee publicly and tell them we are interested. They did have a meeting on March 5th. I'm reporting from the minutes that came to us. They have a motion that recommend the council approves the request to alter the heritage property at Weekum Home and Wake Up Hill, Marriott's Cove, and I move that be adopted.
Moved, seconded by Councilor Asaph. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Sorry.
I wondered where that was, on the right-hand side? Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't know that exact location. I know it's on Wake Up Hill. It's either on the left or the right. I know that's a little bit
Okay.
arrogant, but I'm not sure which side it's on. Thank you.
Okay. Mayors and wardens, did we have another meeting?
We did that last week, I think.
What?
Not since, I think you reported on the mayors and wardens already.
Yeah, I already did, yeah. Yeah, we haven't
You
had
missed-
one
You
since.
missed the senior safety though.
Well, that's because it's not on my agenda.
Oh, yeah, there was a 7.4 Lunenburg County Senior Safety Program.
Okay, senior safety, okay, it is there. Okay. Who's reporting on that one? Tina, okay.
Thank you. Monthly report was included in your package, of course, which you've had for a bit now, so if there are any questions, I don't think anything in particular is different, if you will. The numbers are unfortunately continuing to be high. Still full coverage, which is amazing to me across the county. Sergeant Pat Frenette has joined the team with the retirement of Staff Sergeant Vic Whalen. So Pat Frenette joined the discussion on Tuesday. We had a meeting on Tuesday, and jumping in with both feet, because the RCMP are highly involved with this, with the committee, and with the coordinator, with the coordinator. So, are there any questions?
Any questions, anybody? No? Thank you. Fire advisory.
Sorry, we do, mayors and wardens is actually on there because we need a motion for regional committee members.
Oh.
For the anti-race, or for both the anti-racism and diversity committee members in Lunenburg County, as well as the accessibility, Lunenburg County accessibility.
Okay, so we have recommendations there, don't we? Or-
Yeah, there is a letter there.
Okay, I'm just trying to find it. I don't seem to.
So we need a motion to appoint.
Oh, yeah, okay,
To appoint
These
Astrid
ones here.
yeah.
Seidel and Darlene Higgins to the Lunenburg County Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Advisory Committee for 3-year terms.
Yeah,
And then, can we do them all in one?
yes, you can, yeah.
Number 2 is to appoint Vernon Sims and Caleb Paul Wielden to the Lunenburg County Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Advisory Committee for a 2-year term. And also to appoint Violet Kai and Megan McDonald to the Lunenburg County Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Advisory Committee for a 1-year term.
You're making that motion?
Sorry, you have
And then there's
one more.
also,
yeah.
Oh,
there's a
yes.
recommendation, the committee also made a recommendation that councils direct staff to update ARIDAC, which is the acronym for this committee, to update the ERODAC terms of reference in order to appoint another non-voting member.
To appoint Laura Church to the Lunenburg County
Yeah,
for
so-
a term
so-
pending.
They want another member on the committee. Oh, sorry, I didn't scroll up, excuse me. Lunenburg County, okay, to appoint Laura Church to the Lunenburg County Accessibility Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending September 30th, 2027, and to appoint Amy Chrysler to the Lunenburg County Accessibility Advisory Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2026.
So that's all of your motion.
That's all the motion.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Bremner. Discussion.
Counselor Connors.
Okay, sorry, Councilor.
It's not on the motion, it's after the motion.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. So you wish to
So,
speak?
yeah, so still on the agenda item, please, if I can, mayors and wardens.
Yeah.
So I am keenly interested, coming out of our discussion when we had the presenter under public input and under resource exploration correspondence from the province. We had the very passionate speaker under public input, and then we dealt with it later on. And I believe that Minister Lohr's letter, John Lohr's letter to us, asking for support, you had indicated that there was going to be a telephone meeting with all the mayors and wardens in the province, I believe, and involving NSFM.
Yeah.
And since then, we've also had other correspondence from Minister Lohr on February, after that. And then we've also had correspondence from NSFM, for those listening, Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, talking about that specifically, not just the mineral exploration, but other initiatives by the province to which they're looking to the municipalities for support and input. So I'm wondering where we are with all of that.
There's been no further meetings. It's just back and forth like there's discussions going on, but no decisions that have been made that I'm aware of.
Okay. So I'm just basing it on, because I know that at the time of our meeting, it was indicated, I believe, that there could be a letter that goes. And I did ask, which I'm sure that it hasn't gone yet, because I did ask that we receive it, and also, too, that such letter gets at least posted on our social media and so on.
We haven't received it.
Okay, thank you.
So there's ongoing debate over what happens
enough.
next.
Fair enough, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, fire.
Thank you, Warden Weber, through you to the council. And first, on behalf of Councillor Coolin and myself, we attended the FAC meeting on March 19th at the Forest Heights Community College. And we want to recognize the hard work that continues to happen in our municipality by our first responders and the excellent job they do with they're struggling with some resources. It'd be nice to see some new people step up to the volunteer plate, but I know that's challenging in the world we live today. But they are definitely all looking for memberships, people that can do things to help out the organizations. And if you are interested, please reach out to your local fire service or someone that can connect you with the right person, because it is a very big challenge and they're putting many, many hours in, and we thank them for everything they do. And that's the complete municipality of 7 fire services and 7 districts that manage it, so we appreciate that. At that meeting, there were discussions on the water supply resources and possible new locations that they could look to get dry hydrants, et cetera, set up, as well as continuing to work with what they have and improve those and do monthly or yearly maintenance on them. There was some minor discussion on training and equipment, which are huge. And then in the general roundabout table, we had a discussion thanking the agencies and also appreciating the ones that were on standby for the Bonnie Lee Farm situation that night, which gave us, I feel, and I know Councillor Coolin shared this with me too, that it was an opportunity to learn from things that we have challenges with, as well as use what we have in place already. And thank you to the CAO and staff that fully became involved within minutes of finding out about it and opening two locations that I'm aware of, the Chester Basin Fire Hall and the Baptist Church, to utilize the comfort stations. And that is, I hope, comforting to our municipality members as well as the first responders. And we always can learn from something like this. So again, we appreciated that and extended on behalf of council our thanks to the people that were involved and those on standby. And that was basically it. So that is the report of the Fire Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Sharon?
Thank you. Just to comment on that, the situation actually went very well at Bonnie Lee Farm. There was only one little thing, the alert that went out, the same alert came out at 6 in the morning. And people thought, was there another situation? So I don't know who controls that, but that was the only thing that I would say was a bit odd, because a couple people actually were concerned, we have to evacuate again, because we were allowed to go back in, after 12:30, they were told to go back home, so that was just a bit.
Aaron's going to respond.
Are you? Okay, thank you.
That was a procedural decision made in the past, so during the flooding events, we had found the intrusive alerts of canceling an alert was a little bit more intrusive for residents, so we had made a decision that when we were gonna cancel an evacuation, we were just gonna let the alert expire. However, without realizing that it would continue to notify residents that there was an active situation, so we fixed that process. We'll no longer, that shouldn't happen again, yeah.
All you can do. Good. Any other comments, questions? Thank you. Okay. Heather, you ready?
Maybe not, maybe not.
How's everything going?
Okay, good morning, Warden Weber and Councilors Vino, Bremner, and Church, and other members of the Chester Municipal Council. Thank you for giving us the time today to present our fire services budget for 25-26. Okay, so there is a lot of work goes into the planning and preparations of the budget for the fire department. And I'm going to take you through some of the considerations in setting the budget and the fire rate. So first of all, there is a 20-year capital plan for trucks that's being worked on, and we anticipate having that within the month. And there is also a 5-year capital plan for trucks and equipment that will follow. As an example, number 541, the pumper tanker truck, needs to be replaced in 2027, meaning that it needs to be ordered this summer due to the 2-year lead time to get a truck. And it's estimated that that truck could cost $2 million, assuming we can even get it with the potential U.S. tariffs and the trade situation. There are new kinds of equipment and training that have been needed for new threats like swift water and the wildfires that we're all familiar with. Phase 2 of the new fire station project takes place this year, which is in the final design, engineering, and tender documents. We have been working with municipal procurement and our legal advisor on Phase 2 public request for a proposal documents, which have not yet gone out. And of course, there is a lot of new development in the service area. So the conclusion is that we will need to increase capital and reserves. The proposed fire tax rate. Last year, we advised of the need for greater financial resources to support the capital projects and reserves. For years, our fire tax rate was set at 0.074, which was the lowest in the municipality. And the plan announced last year was to increase the rate gradually over the coming years to provide more in reserves and align with the other fire services. Last year, the rate increased by 2 cents to 0.094, and for the coming fiscal year, the rate is proposed to increase another 2 cents to 0.114. the proposed fire rate. This rate increase will raise an additional $270,000 or 20.9% increase in revenue over 24-25. And this figure encompasses both the rate increase as well as the current property assessments. Approximately $222,000 or 82% of these monies will go to capital and reserves. Approximately $43,000 or 16% will go to an increase in operations. And the biggest item there in the increase in operations is $52,000 for the replacement of on-site radios, and I'll speak to that later in the budget. And this chart that's on your screen shows the 25-26 Chester fire rate will still be below the current average in the municipality, and that average is for 24-25. That's the latest information that we have. The revenue and summary for the draft budget. So a little bit of background. In drafting the budget, we compared the budgets and actual from the past 3 years to consider the patterns. Only the current fiscal year shows on the document for the ease of visibility. The two purple columns, or those on the left, are the current fiscal year, 24-25, included to show the year-to-date budget variance to the end of February. This is the most of the year, but please note that some of the larger expenses are held until the very end of the year to safeguard our cash flow, and that's a normal process that's used in the fire department. So if a number looks low, it's probably why. The pale orange, or the right, is the proposed budget for 25-26. Under revenue, the revenue figures are based on the municipality's 25 property assessments. It's been proposed that the island fireboat rate be discontinued as the fireboat is no longer in service. And you will see in the expenses, though, that there is an inshore boat that is in service and able to support boat and water rescues. This will be addressed in our rescue boat memorandum later. And there is an important to be determined on the line, Capital Fire Station Phase 2 funding. We're going to park that until the end of the budget review. Expense summary. A summary of the operating capital and reserves expenses are included here as a snapshot to easily compare the total revenue and total expenses. The small surplus showing between the two revenue and between the total revenue and total expenses is subject to change based on the actuals. So you can see that on this page that there's very little difference. It's only a $4,000 difference between revenue and expenses. Okay. Operational expenses. In the interest of time, I'm only going to comment where there's a notable change over the previous year and refer to any relevant notes. First, the operations budgets. These are the day-to-day costs of running the fire department. The Consumer Price Index, or CPI, for Nova Scotia in 2024 is 2.3%, and you'll see this scattered through the expenditures. Administration. This section has some redistribution to get more realistic based on the actual spend. Items 5 and 6 refer to the cost for committee administration by the Village of Chester staff and office overhead for the meeting space, the files, etc. And as per the intermunicipal agreement, note that this arrangement expires in October, and the committee passed a motion on March 11th to continue the service relationship after that date. Operational expenses, firefighting force, roughly the same as last year, and training and education, added in travel expenses for 2 people to attend a provincial conference in PEI that hasn't been attended basically since before COVID. Firefighting equipment, The minor increase is some of the hoses need to be replaced, so we put $1,000 in the budget to cover that. Personal protective equipment, same as last year. These are items that have a replacement cycle. We replace so many each year. So the budget amounts is basically the same. The past year, 2 grants were received from the province to offset PPE, and capital wildfire equipment costs. And these are not annual grants, so we need to plan accordingly. Operational expenses, communication, number 8. For the improvement in field communications, 28 new radios will be purchased that can be worn in a holster under the firefighter's jacket. And obviously, in an emergency or a fire situation, if a melter radio does not help anybody in that emergency, and these radios will certainly help protect our fire people. Maintenance, roughly the same as last year, moderately lower. Number 9 notes that the truck fuel maintenance costs are actually split out by vehicle for tracking purposes internally, but only the totals are shown here. Operational expense, fire station building, a few increases due to utility costs and insurance, including number 10, the fire hall property insurance premium. The fire boat, as the main 571 rescue boat is no longer in operation, the only cost shown is a moderate maintenance allotment for 572, which is the small inshore boat. Subtotal operating, in total, there's an 8.7 increase in the operating cost projected. And you can see that at $491,000 for operations versus $448 this year. And if you think about the $52,000 that we're going to spend on the radios, really, we're very much the same as we have been in the last year. Capital expenses. The capital budget, items 20 and 21. This is the expense end of the to be determined regarding phase 2 of the new fire station, flagged in revenue section. Again, we will address this shortly. 22 and 23, other fees for the new station include communications, website and social media management, and monitoring to keep the public as informed as possible on the new station. Surveying, etc. This line is expected to be under this year since some planned surveying of the land fees to do with the property at 4070 Highway 3 will roll over into the 25-26 budget. Other administration includes some additional management time for the village clerk treasurer, which we are very grateful for, who has been kept extremely busy on this file, and some bookkeeping hours to manage the donations coming in. We have added in some funding for repairs to the existing building, which we still have to keep standing in operation. And as an example, there's a leak in the roof and the radio tower, etc., that need to be addressed, and those are currently in the stages to be repaired. The largest item here is a projected down payment for the replacement of truck 541 for delivery in 2027, coming out of active revenue, not reserves. If a down payment is not needed, this figure will be added to the apparatus reserve. Reserve deposits, we're planning on a total of 13.5% increase in apparatus and building reserve deposits in the next fiscal year. The operating reserve is funded with any surplus funds from the current year, and we won't know what or if there are any until the end of the audit is completed for the year. Any surplus funds, such as the unassigned 4K in this year's budget, must go to operating reserves and may not remain in active funds. Revenue and summary. At the end of the day, the total expenses are 20.4% more in this budget compared to a revenue increase of 20.9. So now on to the big item, the to be determined.
Just if I can ask a question, just on the island rates and the fireboat, do the islands pay the general rate or just the island rate?
No, they paid the,
Sorry, I have some of that in that other report. Just a
Oh,
moment.
okay, you're gonna report on it later, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay,
okay?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the draft budget, okay, to provide some context on the to be determined, the revenue note number 3 and capital note number 20 in the budget document you received were based on the assumption that the Chester Fire Services Committee will be the sole owners of the new building, meaning 50% village and municipality owned, and the committee would therefore be responsible for finding the funding through grants, donations, and borrowing. These notes read as follows. To be determined, funding for capital for new fire station project phase 2 is unknown at this time. Line item to be amended later in the fiscal year and brought back. When and if borrowing is required, the process is to submit a request to council and the commission for approval guarantee, followed by ministerial approval prior to going to a bank or a lending institution. Number 20, to be determined, capital new fire station project phase 2 costs are unconfirmed at this time. Line item to be amended later in the fiscal year and brought back for approval. Phase 2 is the final design, engineering, and tender document for the build to bring the project to the shovel-ready stage, including project management and cost consultation. And the preliminary estimate for 25-26 portion is approximately 1.3 million, and obviously that's subject to change. So currently, the 22 Agreement Clause 40 states, the municipality and the village shall be responsible for any capital borrowing required to implement the annual capital budget at the same percentage as funded in the capital budget. However, the committee became a body corporate under Section 60 of the Municipal Government Act after the initial 2022 agreement was signed. Our municipal advisor recently flagged that the municipality and the village cannot borrow on behalf of another corporate entity. So, at the end of the day, who will own the new fire station? So, we put two scenarios on your screen. So, under scenario A, if the station is in the name of the committee, therefore owned 50% by the municipality and the village, the committee will need borrowing powers it does not currently have. An amendment to Clause 40 is needed for the partners to guarantee rather than borrow the funds. As a side note, the committee is now registered as a qualified donee with Canada Revenue, which will assist in sourcing funding. Scenario B, if the municipality and village prefer to own the station directly, therefore also own 50%, the municipality and the village will have to do the borrowing for the project. Phase 2 this year, and then Phase 3 build. This could necessitate far more involvement into the details of the project than the council or the commission have, I would suggest, an appetite for. Regardless, the question needs to be answered then for 25-26 budget must be amended accordingly. So we would still suggest approving the budget as it stands now so that the fire department and committee can operate without interruption. Depending on how the ownership question is resolved, a revised budget would come back as soon as possible in Q1.
Yeah, we have to sort that out.
Yeah.
Bit of a
Yeah. So,
Oh, Sharon, you want to
Oh, I
speak?
thought you were done.
Yeah, we are.
yeah,
No, I just want to thank you. I think that the Chester Fire Services Committee has worked out very well. It allows transparency, and I think that's what the residents were wanting, particular in my District 7. Very pleased that that has happened. And I don't know if it's appropriate, I would move that we approve the budget.
Well, you can do it, but we need to resolve the,
You need to
I don't know if we
resolve that
need to
first.
resolve it first or not, but
I think you can approve the budget as it is, and then knowing that we need to resolve that question, so you could either
Ownership and
discuss
borrowing.
that today or defer that discussion, like request more information.
well, staff need to tell me which is the
Yeah.
best approach.
Yeah, for Claire, yes, yeah. That's probably something you'd want some advice from Sam on.
Yeah. Okay, so you moved it, do we have a second early? Seconded by Tom?
And may I speak, Ward Member?
Yes?
Thank you so much. And first of all, I want to recognize the work that has been done by not only this committee, but also the different fire services committee that do annual budgets and all the challenges they face and everything that's challenging, as we know. And first of all, I believe that going to the 1.14 is necessary. I also realize that this is trying to catch up for many years that most commissions don't like to increase their tax rate because of the dynamics around that and the challenges. But at the same time, we are in a very different world, and prices are
Going up?
going up so quickly that we are, when you look at a potentially $2 million cost for a regular fire service truck, is getting very concerning, but that's the world we live in. And I think that when you look at it, 84%, I believe, Kirk, what you said for capital works and 16% for operational, that is pretty, that shows the value of our volunteer fire services and what they contribute every day, that it's not costing us, just the opposite when it's career, where it's 96% for wages and benefits and 4% for operational and capital, which has always been the reverse and challenge. So I think this is very real of what we are fortunate to have, what we keep encouraging to grow and have people involved in. So again, I compliment you for doing the work that's challenging. It's never easy. And I will be supporting this motion. I think this is a very balanced budget, and I know we have other questions to address in time to come about the scenarios and the concerns and others. So thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Oh,
Yeah, I just, if I could ask, and thanks for the presentation. So when you're buying a new fire truck, has it been in the past that you, if we're in the world of 10 years ago, that you access the best price? Obviously, if that's US, so I'm sure you're gonna look at keeping everything in Canada if possible.
if possible.
If possible. And I know that's a hard question to answer right now, but,
he might answer.
oh, okay.
So we don't always take the best price, we take the best product for the price that represents the investment in the community by the ratepayers. Every apparatus in this country comes from the US. There is not a Canadian
Okay.
truck apparatus chassis manufacturer. There are bodybuilders that take the truck from the steering wheel and a cab and a set of frame rails to a fire truck, but there is not a Canadian manufacturer.
Wow, yeah, because I know with
Yeah. There was
with
an
Western
article-
Shore, I was a commissioner,
there was
and
an
that's, yeah.
article Just recently in the New York Times in representation of the fires in Los Angeles, where they talked about there only being big three conglomerates, US companies that build fire trucks. So it is the world that we are in Canada across the line. So we'll do our best to mitigate
Yeah.
the next couple of years with fire trucks, but
I knew they built them when they got here, I just weren't sure if they were built in Ontario or,
so there's
yeah,
finished product manufacturers right across the country.
Yeah.
The tanker that was purchased in 2023 came from Vars, Ontario, where I'm happy to say we saved
Yeah.
about $400,000 on that truck. So we're pretty happy about that. But with the tariffs, there's just a lot
Yeah.
of demand.
sure, thank you.
Andre?
I'm not really one to pile on, but I will say this one commentary. because I've been hanging around this place for more than a decade, okay? And I've heard a lot of complaints about a lot of things, but there's one thing I've never heard a complaint about, and it's the fire service.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with the proposed budget and the proposed increase, you know, and nobody wants a tax increase, but I don't expect to receive any complaints about that, because I think the residents recognize the value, and they're very happy.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. So were you gonna answer on the fireboat?
Yeah, that'll be Cody and I.
They have a second presentation.
Oh, second presentation, okay, okay. I'm losing track of everything. Too much on my plate.
Oh, wait, so I take it we'll circle back on the ownership question. You guys can let me know. I'll spare Cody some of this. So we had prepared this memorandum about the rescue boat service. And when we initially were writing it, we were really looking at a fulsome set of options for replacing the boat that is no longer operational. As we went along, it seemed to make more and more sense to us to just discontinue the service and not charge an island tax. I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit. So just to kind of explain a little bit about some of our thinking, on page 4, option 1 would be to discontinue the fireboat service, which is a legitimate consideration given the anticipated capital costs and the nature of the service. The purchase of a replacement 571 on our own is not feasible for the Chester Fire Services Committee or Volunteer Fire Department. The accumulated funds in the fireboat account, which were transferred into the apparatus reserve last year, amounted to around $40,000. The apparatus reserve is earmarked for trucks. Further, we know we have 2 fire trucks scheduled for replacement in 2027. One has been deferred from 2021 and may be deferred further. But we are looking at the estimated cost of $2 million. By the end of this fiscal year, there will be roughly half that in the reserve. And then with further contributions, we should be just squeaking in there. So there is no capacity for a large spend on a boat when the priority must be the apparatus needed to provide service to the vast majority of ratepayers in the service area. We also looked at some costs for something similar to the whaler that was used, something similar to the whaler that was new, and just compared that with the full capability firefighting boat that Halifax Regional Fire and Emergency, but that was over $1 million a few years ago. So there is quite a bit of water rescue coverage on the South Shore, which we covered sort of from page 7 on, and just a comparison of what the other fire departments on the South Shore have. And then to jump to your first question, Warden Weber, on the bottom of page 8, tax revenue. So the island rate, the residents of the islands in the service area have always paid the same fire tax rate as the rest of the service area. The island ratepayers do not receive the same level of fire and emergency service as an on-land ratepayer, but we would argue this is not a reasonable expectation. The islands have an access barrier vastly different from onshore that must be recognized. To have the same service as on land would be significantly more expensive than has ever been charged. With the operating budget, according to the municipality's finance departments, there are 41 residents assessed for the fireboat tax located in districts 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7, and I have a chart there of where they're located. And the actual revenue received annually to operate the boat is very modest. It's been roughly $10,000, so there's not a lot there. So the revenue for operating the boat minus expenses is insufficient to contribute toward capital reserves in any meaningful way. So, just jumping to our final page, on page 10, there's also the report on the boat that's attached, but you don't need to go through that. So question number 1, should the 571 service be discontinued and not buy a new boat? And if so, the fire rate charged to the island residents should be discontinued as of the upcoming 2025-26 fiscal year. And council may also wish to consider that the 24-25 collection be returned to the residents. Regardless, the 572 inshore boat would still continue to be in service, and that can handle on water. If the excuse me, if the preference is to replace the boat and continue the service, we would need to determine who is the appropriate user and tax base for the service, which would probably go beyond the current island folks. How should the boat rate be restructured? What is the preferred option for a replacement boat? So you can see why we kind of made the recommendation we did that to not go forward, but, and Cody knows more than me, so.
We got two things I just wanted to clarify. 572, which is what we call our inshore boat, is a 12-foot rigid Zodiac. So I don't want anybody to think that it's comparable to the 25-foot commercial grade Boston whaler that we had been providing emergency services to the area with. And the second part that I wanted to chat about was we believe there's a service there as Chester Volunteer Fire Department, but to the point of this report, there's no money to replace that boat. It was donated by a community member, which gave us a wonderful service for a lot of years, but and you'll see in the attachment, the boat is no longer safe to ask our folks to respond with. So that's where we're at. We're here in front of you, looking for direction and your decision on if you want that service to continue for the community. So.
I just wondered, I know, we didn't even provide the service until John Risley just up and gave us the boat. I mean, I'm well aware of that. But I just wonder if there's been a discussion with the other fire departments in the municipality about whether the need for the service and whether, I guess, I hate to say too much, but when I go to the store or whatever, I do hear from some of the others that may be interested in providing the service. And I've actually, even not too many days ago, was told by one of them that there was the potential for some provincial funding to go towards that.
Is this on? Yeah. Have we talked to the other departments about providing that service? We have not, because we feel the direction needs to come from here first. Yeah. We understand the need for the service. What we don't have is the money to provide it. Yeah. We have a place to house the boat in service times by a community member free of charge. We have people trained with SVOP. We have a program in place to run the boat. What we don't have, what boils down to, is the money to supply the service. Yeah. There is a rumor that there may be some provincial funding. I have been contacted by the province around that. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that dollar amount is. I can't answer that. I'm not sure anybody can actually answer that other than the folks that are responsible for that. And that decision hasn't been made, that I do know. Yeah. We're open to anything and everything as far as talks, but I think the direction has to come here first. The responsibility, it lies on your folks' shoulders of that service.
Yeah, I get that taking it out of this year's budget is not operational, you can't use it. But I just think that it might be useful if, as a municipal fire service, the discussion were to take place on what value they see in trying to replace it. And And yeah, the rumor about provincial funding, I mean, I think it needs to be sorted out, but if it was there, it makes a difference. You know, that's all I'm saying. Oh, you pressed first.
Yeah, thank you. I've had some discussion with my fire department. They've shown interest, and we discussed this, but I'd like your opinion. I mean, we all want to give fire service. If the money wasn't the object for you guys, you would do it, correct? Okay. So I like the idea of, you know, everybody involved. I mean, if you know, we can split the cost between
All of them. I mean, they
between
all have
everybody.
islands.
You know, they know the access is there. I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of my department, but there's, you know, I think that's the way forward, and, you know, we should be providing the service to the islands. And I know it's a cost, but if we share it, you know, we've got, you know, most of it, the housing for it, and you guys have the experience using the boat, and I mean, I just think it would be part of almost like a mutual aid thing. I would expect, but I hope that's the path we sort
Well, I
of
just think a
have.
discussion
Yeah,
would be
thank you.
helpful. Yeah. Andre?
Yes, I have a few questions. The larger fireboat that's on the screen right now, it's the only one of its kind in our municipality. The others have some, it's like Blandford, for example, I think has a Zodiac similar to
They have
your.
a Wally boat, yes.
Okay, a Wally, okay. But it's a small boat.
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe there's some others, I'm not sure if Western Shore has a boat.
I think it is only us in Blandford.
Yeah, they don't have any.
So in the other areas, we're not currently not serving those islands,
Correct.
presume.
We serve as Chester with that boat.
With all of them.
We respond to the entire.
Okay,
district.
and so if you're responding to all the district, in the tax rates that were shown in this budget, is that for all of those islands or just the ones that fall within your sort of bound?
My understanding is that fireboat tax was charged across the municipality.
On all islands,
So we're already then, the revenue from all of the islands is accounted for.
Yeah.
So whether they
Correct.
cooperate or not, the revenue is already being considered here. I'm not sure what the discussion would really entail in terms of what value the other departments, not to dismiss their ideas, but what, you already have the budget from those islands at this point, and the numbers don't work. That's what I'm gathering from this conversation.
Correct.
So unless they were to contribute monies then from not the islands, then how does it help?
Well, like I've had the discussion like with Western Shore where they're considering going down the road of if Chester's getting rid of it, we'll get one.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I just think they should have the talk and the chat.
Sure.
And also, like, how often is it used? What's the value of it for the cost?
Well, the beauty of this report, it's all
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I know, but I
It
just.
shows every single response in the last 30 years.
Yeah,
So it's,
yeah, and it's.
it's terrific report, actually, and it answers every single one of those. And before probably they volunteer to take it over, they should probably read this report.
Yeah.
Because it's extremely detailed report that explains why it is that they that reluctantly, and I know these people, they want to do this.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do, they save people. So, you know, they wouldn't give it up if they could do it themselves. And the idea that when we just toss it to somebody else and they're gonna do it, well, I don't think that's
Well, I'm not
realistic.
saying that, I just think if all the fire departments came here and told us that we should be expending the funds for this, then that might make a difference.
Okay, well, it would mean that we would have to contribute monies that aren't the island monies, and that's really the discussion,
Well, yeah,
the crux of it. And whether it's housed in Western Shore or Chester or Blandford or wherever,
Yeah.
that's not even the discussion. It's where do you get the money from, and we don't need to talk to other departments to figure that out. We have to talk to ourselves, because we're the ones who are gonna have to find those monies. So the discussion, if we wish to continue the service, doesn't belong with the members of Western Shore with respect, or Blandford, or anywhere else. It's a discussion that us and the village have to have amongst ourselves.
Well, I know that the Western Shore Fire Department is having the discussion, they're having it with the province of Nova Scotia now.
Well, if they can provide the funding to folks that don't currently offer the service, surely we can have that funding applied to those who are offering it now, or were offering it up until this report. So it just seems like, why would we go and talk to another party that hasn't been offering the service and see if they can do it? When it's clear why it can't be done, unless you can overcome this barrier, then why would we have that discussion? That's not the discussion. The discussion belongs here. It belongs at the table at the village and between us, and that's what we do, you know.
Tom, and then
Thank you, Warden Weber, and through you to council. This is a very good topic to have, because when you think about most of our districts except New Ross, and I respect they don't have islands, I will recognize that, a quarter of our district is shoreline. I've listened to all these discussions, and believe me, I may have listened to these many times before. And I see this as a valuable service, but I think now I got to get down in the trenches. This is a discussion that, yes, council has to have as a united front. But this is also a discussion the fire departments have to have as a united front if you only do one location service. We have a different attitude now than we did 2 decades ago, where the fire departments actually see the value of special resources, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, like swiftwater rescue is a joint effort by many departments. This may be, and we also see changing times in that members from individual fire departments are now becoming members of multiple fire departments, which has given us a better attitude. However, the attitude isn't solved, because this is about money. This is about getting the right piece of equipment, which is not cheap, that we have only done minor maintenance, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, on this boat over 2+ decades. We, again, were very fortunate, as we have been in this municipality, to get a huge donation that actually came with funding to make it this boat. And we are now in a decision-making time. Does the municipality take over this service, which for $10,000, you couldn't buy the fuel for that boat to run it for a year, Chief. And that's not giving them a fair shake at anything. So it doesn't matter if Western Shore's doing it, Hubbard's, Blandford, Chester, any of them, including New Ross, if they decided to do this kind of thing. We have to, as Councilor Vino says, make a very tough decision here. Are we going to be a partner in this? Because this is where this has gone. This is a very unique situation of a changing world that's more of a municipality issue, and I do recognize that. I think we have 2 fundamental things here to think about. Disbanding the service from the Chester Fire Service and looking at a new way to do it is a very good option, because they don't have the money. They've got enough things on their plate when you think about 2 fire trucks and a new possible station. That's them, and I recognize and I value your forethinking on saying these are our priorities. We can't do everything. We're going through that in Council, Warden Weber, right now, trying to figure out that kind of stuff. Then you look at the fact that we have been collecting rates that aren't even comparable to what they should be from the islands. To get $10,000, that would have to have a huge different opinion. So I think that we do have potential. If there's provincial funding, there may be a few dollars. So again, that goes back to what Councilor Vino says, working to find the money, and not only from us, but other sources. And much more further discussions to both get a better understanding of what can be rebuilt. It may take some time. That's just the way the world is. And the fact that we have to look at protecting another sector of our service value. And I do agree, I think it's worth looking into, but I also think it's time to get it away from Chester, where they're not providing
well,
it.
they should just all have a discussion and tell us
Right.
what they think's the best.
So I will make a motion that we remove the service from the Chester Fire Service, from their rescue boat, and that we remove the island tax rate until we redesign what's going on. I know this combines 3 things in one, and that we do return the 2024, 2025 tax rebates back to those residents, indicating we are looking potentially at moving forward if in another direction. I will make that a motion.
Do we have a seconder?
Moved, or second?
Discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Andre and then Sharon, or Abdel and then Sharon.
Yeah, I respectfully disagree, Andre, that I agree that it belongs at this table, but everybody around this table knows that the fire departments butt heads from time to time. So if you don't involve them, in my view, is not the right decision. Whether Western Shore houses it, Chester, Blanford, it doesn't matter. But not even to bring them into the conversation is just, it doesn't make sense to me. And, you know, I don't know about how moving forward with this motion.
This doesn't impact the ability for them to
Well, as
go.
long as it doesn't impact the ability, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But I think getting them involved is, not involved in
makes
just coming
perfect
here and
sense.
making an arbitrary decision, I don't agree with.
Sharon and then Tom.
Well, I'll just comment, do we normally rebate tax revenue that already came in? And that's the only thing that I comment on, like,
Yeah, I'm not sure about that,
I think we-
unless it wasn't in service and we weren't providing the service.
Yeah, I would think, I'm not aware of any situation where we've rebated it, but I'm not aware of any situation.
That's the only-
that's
Road's
come
been
up
on
like this.
service for 24 months.
It was not in service in 24, 25, other than the small insurance.
because we weren't aware of that, and I just,
I'm not to argue with anybody, but I have the emails that were sent here to put the road out of service
okay.
2 years ago.
You gotta turn the mic live when he speaks.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh, not my fault.
Hey, Tom, I guess, no, Abdel, are you done? Tom.
Complete, yeah,
Oh,
that's,
Warden Weber, through you to, Warden Weber, thank you, through you to council. This is about communications, Deputy Asa. I do agree with you. You've got to have everybody to the table, and it's not going to be a pretty discussion by any means, but it's got to be done. I do feel we have to start dealing with some of these long-standing challenges that have brought much agony and maybe some other words that I don't want to use publicly to the table. And we have to get people thinking of what they have to serve their communities, absolutely. But there are a few things that they have to jointly do, I think, or consider. So again, thank you, and I appreciate the comments.
Clarissa?
Oh, thank you. Is this a platform or an opportunity to be a discussion at the next FAC meeting? You'd have all the fire departments in one, in one forum, one place, and be able to just have that first general discussion, as opposed to each department coming here, setting an appointment time, and, being able to presentate whether they choose to or to go forward with this.
That's
I
what
mean,
I
it-
was
It'd be
suggesting,
an
yes.
opportunity, if it could be on the agenda for the next FAC meeting. Thank you.
It certainly can. I can't speak for the other chiefs. I can speak for myself. We spend a lot of times in meetings, a lot of times that we do because we love our communities. And it would be nice, before we have that meeting, to have that discussion, that we have an answer and support from this room on where you want to go. And then we can have a discussion on how we can accomplish that as a team. But for us to have another meeting and then to come back here and you guys to go, well, no, we're still not gonna do it because that's gonna cost a boatload of money. No offense to anybody. But it's really just more about being respectful of every other chief's time, who I do know that every other chief goes to a lot of meetings. And we've had a lot of meetings. I've been sitting at this table over 20 years that accomplished nothing. We don't get that time back. So that would be my only ask, is that this group make a recommendation on if they want to be in that service or out of that service. And then you folks can table things at the FAC just as easy as the chiefs, and it can be suggested that we have that discussion. It can go to the chiefs table as well. We meet every 2 months. It can be put on the agenda there to have that discussion. And we can certainly have those discussions while you folks are making your decisions. Nobody's against having discussions with anybody.
I think, I'll speak for council, which is difficult to do when they haven't voted on anything. But I think we want to pursue what the options that work best for the municipality are. So we're not asking you to meet to waste your time, but we're asking you to come back and tell us what the best approach, what you believe it would cost, And then I think we would take a look at, okay, what's the best way for us to participate in the funding? Is it through a joint tax rate all across, every fire department charges a certain amount for this instead of just you guys? No matter where it sets, you know, because it's a service to everybody, you know?
Yeah, it definitely has been, since the boat's been in service, but
Yeah.
we've served across the municipal.
Yeah, so all taxpayers who are using the service should pay for the service. Abdallah? So-
Yeah, that's where I was going. And I guess maybe that's something for staff, but has anybody that have properties on islands, there's one in my district, a huge house, have they been contacted in any way, or just generally this is your, I mean, they assume that they had fire service, because, but what I'm saying is, has anybody consulted with them and said, look, we're at a crossroads here, you've been getting fire service and through the report that you're not gonna be able to do it. Now, if you would like fire service, this, because of what it costs,
And it's rescue service
and it's
too.
rescue,
Like, you know,
we might have to
if
look
your boat's on
at
fire, road
increasing
30
your
foot.
fire rate to a certain extent, not crazy, but it's a service that is unique. It challenges, it's off land. So I think the property owners we need some feedback from them. I'd like to know how they feel about it. Maybe they think, you know what? We have insurance, we don't, we're not interested in fire protection. I mean, I don't know, has anybody ever had that discussion with them?
My understanding is, no, that hasn't happened recently, that there hasn't been that discussion, but that I think there's an awareness that the boat was not, like, it wasn't there to fight a structure fire. It was there if there was like a grass fire or like, so it was never meant to be like, save the house, I don't
Yeah,
think.
so we should be clear that we have never, and probably will never, unless we go to a completely bigger system, provide structural firefighting on islands. If you look at response times and fire times, by the time we get there, it will be in the basement. What we do offer is protection of outbuildings from defensive firefighting with the ability we had with the previous boat of 400 gallon a minute flow rate, whatever that gives us to ability. Rescues, we've done a lot of island extractions. And we've been to several boat fires in a boatyard that is within our district. I can't say any more than that. But if there's 100 boats there and one's on fire, if you don't stop it, you get the repercussions of that, for sure. I can say, as far as communication goes, annually I would be contacted by an underwriter that covers one of the islands in your area. And last year I informed him that the boat would not be in service whatsoever. So the underwriter for that particular island is knowledgeable of it. But we've not made a public campaign of any sort other than communication to the MODC that the boat is out of service. And that's because you folks collect the tax and charge that
that's why
service,
it's
right?
there.
So.
Yeah. Tom and then Andre.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I think this is a fine example of the communications that's gonna go on, and I hope we're not trying to solve this today, because this could go on for hours and hours and hours. I would just recognize we do have a motion on the floor. I think our first step is to dissolve this from the Chester Fire Service and reestablish the structure, working with many hours of communications with all departments, the taxpayers
See
that
where we
want to
go
get
next.
involved, and council, but I caution you, we can't solve this in one session or maybe many. So I just don't want to get us down in the weeds so far that we can't go anywhere. Thank you.
Andre?
Thank you. Yeah, we don't want to be here all day. Just wanted to reiterate the point in maybe different words. It's a funding issue. It's not a desire to offer the service, that's clear. So right now we have a funding model based on property tax assessments on islands that can't support this service in a nutshell. So it doesn't matter where this boat is located in the municipality, that will continue to be the issue unless we change the funding model. So if we want to recognize that this boat doesn't really protect property. It keeps people out of the water. It keeps their boats from catching on fire, so it's really serving the recreational boating community more than anything. And those people mostly live on the land, and we want to find a way to tax them so that it supports this service. That decision is one that we would have here. We're in consultation, of course, with those fire departments, but just sending the fire departments off to go talk amongst themselves, that, I don't see how that will help. We have to be, we're central to this discussion, because if we want this service, if we decide, as the chief has said, that it's something that's important enough to us that we want to continue, then we need to talk about how we're gonna fund it, because it can't possibly be funded in the way that it has been. There's no problem with the service they've offered. It's excellent. Everybody's happy with it. They're trained. It shouldn't be anywhere else other than where it is. But if we want to continue it, then we need to be willing to change the way we fund it. That discussion has to start here and then go out to the others, not send them off into a room and see what they come back with. Because this report tells me that it doesn't matter who wants that boat, you can't fund it.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Sorry, just for clarity, can you, I'm pretty sure that I'm understanding the current motion, and I'm not sure if we're going to move to a second motion, but just what the extent of that first motion? Tom?
Well, it's to
dissolve. Yeah.
Dissolve
The
the
current, yeah, okay.
current, yeah.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
And remove the island tax rate.
And remove the
Okay,
island.
thank you very
Yeah,
much.
until we come up with a better plan.
Okay,
All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Now, I don't know that we need another motion so much, well, Andre? No?
No.
Yeah, oh, but we just need, I think that this council is interested in pursuing, revitalizing the boat service to all the municipalities, and whether we do the taxing or whether or not it's an addition to the fire tax rate in all of the districts, which we don't set, but they have the ability if they choose to. I just want us to have a discussion about what you believe is the next best step. And I think that we support it, it's just that we aren't 100% sure on, I want all the fire departments to work together if I can. Well, if they don't try, they aren't gonna do it.
Then we know what the next step is.
Yeah, yeah.
Warden Weber, thank you. I can speak for myself as the representative with Councillor Coolin on the FAC. I will ask to have this on the agenda to get a discussion. I do agree with Councillor Vino. We have to build the strength of the process here, but they also have to start talking amongst themselves to let's get their options, what they feel. Some of their ideas could be fantastic.
Yeah.
And there may be some services that don't want to be involved at all. That
And
is
if they don't,
something-
then we need to know that.
That's right. We need to have some kind of solidarity in the process, and I can agree with you, that can be challenging
Yeah.
to know what the structure looks like and moving forward. That's just a comment of my own. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate the knowledge of, I mean, I was imagining that, and I didn't get down to the nuts and bolts, but you're right. I mean, if a house is on fire in an island, by the time you get there, I mean, so that in my head was what I was thinking, but,
You have to bring the fire truck across.
but what I'm saying is, I just envisioned in my mind, it was basically to try to save the structure. But, that leads me to believe, is the service worth it? If we're just gonna save a field of grass? Or is it, and that's the question, and I like to hear from the property owner. Because I think they're essential of this. Do they want the service? Are they willing to pay a premium for that service? Because it's unique. Now, they may come back and say, you know what? Hey, we don't want the service. What we do? We just say, good, and that's the end of the story. I think the property owners need to be involved.
Well, perhaps, and they're gonna hear this
Yeah.
conversation here today, so,
Yeah.
probably when I go to the grocery store, somebody will tell me. But,
Yeah.
We gotta start somewhere, so I just want the chiefs and all that to get together and have a
Well, it's
discussion.
information, nothing wrong with information.
Yeah. And if we decide to go down the road of a public consultation process, that's up to us. I mean, we don't do it about buying new fire trucks or anything else.
I just wanted to take a second now that I think we're concluded to thank everybody for your support, both here at this table and in public. I can't speak for all the chiefs, but I do believe they probably feel very similar, that having support is essential and makes us feel like the sacrifice that we make, not just on a fire and emergency scene, but when we leave our family to go to a meeting or practice, that we're supported. We don't always see that, and different varies of governance that governs us. So I wanted to extend a personal thank you to each and every counselor and staff here at the municipality. Thank you for that support. It's appreciated.
Thank you for what you do.
Great.
'Cause it's- yeah. It's like I said at the dinner, the only tax rate that I don't get any complaints about is the fire one. We're gonna take a 10-minute break, and I think everybody needs it.
Are you doing nominations?
Oh, huh,
I
yeah.
got you.
Okay, you got me, okay.
Oh, shit, how you doing, buddy? You looking around? I haven't seen you for a long week.
I was off for a couple of weeks, so it's good to be back.
Good to have you back.
So once a year, we talk about capital grants, and so that meeting is today. So each year, January 31st, we have the deadline for two different capital projects or grant options, a major capital as well as the community capital. And this year, we had one application through the major capital stream, and that was from the Sherbrooke Lake Camp. And folks remember a few weeks ago, we had Lorraine Birch, who's also in the audience today, come in and made a presentation to council about Sherbrooke Lake Camp and gave you a little bit of background as it relates to that project. And then on the other side of the community capitals, we have received 3 applications, one from the Forties Community Center, one from the New Ross Farmers Association, and one from the Ocean Swells Community Center. So just for a little bit of background and context on the grant, so a couple of years ago when council last had some of these discussions around the capital grants program, we had decided that the budget for the year would be approximately $275,000. That was the amount that you were comfortable with. And that amount, if you gave out that full amount, that would keep the reserve funding, which is where the money to support these grants comes from, to keep that amount in it around that reserve around $1 million. So I did provide a little bit of background in there for context on where we are financially. So we checked in with our Department of Finance staff and did some predictions to March the 31st, and anticipated with kind of funds in the reserve and considering interest and those types of things, that would be around $1.5 million in that reserve. And so if council were to consider the applications today, as well as some of the outstanding previous commitments from other years that you would have, we would be in a position of about 1.4 million at the end of that. So in terms of a reserve, we're doing fairly well. And then as well, if you look at the total of the applications that we have this year, we're not over exceeded the amount that you typically would want to give out in the course of a year, being that we're at about 143,500. So that's just a little bit of kind of background and context. And so each of the applications has been part of your package, and so hopefully you've had an opportunity to kind of go through those and kind of are familiar with what each of the applicants is looking for. So I guess I'd suggest that perhaps we look at the major capital project first, and then just go through each of them, and then leave it up to you, Warden, how you'd like to have motions associated with the decision making on each of those. Good. I'm familiar with each of these applications. I don't know everything about all of them, so if there's any specific questions, I'm happy to try and field those as best I can.
Yeah. So, we're on to the Sherbrooke Lake. We've had the presentation.
Yeah.
What do people want to do?
One other thing I'll just mention around this application is that when Ms. Birch was in to present the last time, there was a request for some additional information related to the residents from the Municipality of Chester that take advantage of that facility. And so there is a cover letter that Lorraine was able to provide with a little bit of additional information that had a little bit of breakdown of some of those numbers.
I saw it somewhere, I just forget it.
Yep, there's 2 pages. It was dated March the 4th, and
Did it make the agenda package?
I don't see it.
I saw it somewhere, but I don't remember where.
I don't see it.
Came as an email. It came as an email, not in our package.
I don't.
No, it was additional information following the submission of the application, so I'll just turn those on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember getting it, but I don't remember where it is.
Yeah, March the 4th, right?
Yeah. I don't think it made today's
No.
agenda package. It was sent as a separate email.
People from all over the place come to it.
Yeah, so just in terms of that question question, I guess, before we get into any further, it's mostly around the, if you will, the Council Bremner and Coolin, because they would not have had the history that we all have had here. So that was a first-time question of any of our applicants in all, well, at least in my 12 years here, So we may want to actually build that into the criteria. So, actually, I should ask Chad. Chad, is that correct? That's never been a question, users, visitors of any of our applicants, when we did the aging in place one for Bonnie Lee. I don't think we asked if those if the people that are going there are from the municipality. The Ross Farm Museum, they received $100,000 a few years ago. I would have to say that the majority of their visitors, I hope, are outside of the municipality.
Well, that's,
I hope so, right? Yeah, so in terms of what that means, but again, that was a first time that was ever posed, and that's a decent question, but it had never been asked of any of our applicants up to this particular deliberation.
who's next?
Councillor Bremner.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Warden Weber. And I'm specifically talking about the major capital grant application from the Sherwood Lake Camp. I think this gives us two great options. First, we're building a community wealth for both youth and adult, because I believe the presentation did note some adult participation as well. It's a long-standing, beautiful part of our municipality. It also shows cooperation as a municipality. 7 councilors. I can speak for myself. I strongly support this because this is about teamwork and trying to lessen that long-standing, it's all about Chester. It's not all about Chester. It's all about a municipality here. There are things that I have to deal with from the village, as you all, in the district, as you all have to for your own areas. But this is, to me, a very valuable, as many other projects will be over my time here, and I support this
I've used it, my kids have used it.
$1,000 request. Thank you.
Andre?
Okay, I have a few comments.
This mic's not on.
There you go, sorry.
Okay, I have a few comments. I agree, it's not only about Chester, and that narrative sometimes does occur. We can become parochial, it's true. I would suggest that if you look historically at our grants process, we haven't been overly parochial, at least not in terms of centering those grants on Chester. In fact, you might even argue that New Ross has been more successful than most districts. And that's not in any way a negative, it's just they are very organized. So, but I would never suggest that we should try to put grants in an area, especially New Ross, just because we want to try to make it equitable, because they've already had plenty. That's not really even in question. But really what is in question for me is the impact, because $100,000 of a grant is a lot of money. And somehow we've, over the years, have come to this sort of narrative that you meet the criteria for a grant, and therefore you get the money or all of the money you requested. And that, I think, is the minimum standard. Meeting the criteria is the minimum bar. Like, can you even approach council with the request? It doesn't mean if you come and you have met the criteria and you're the only one, then you automatically get it. I say no. I say, what is the question? The question for me is, okay, now that it's gotten to this place, it's at this table, then what is the impact of this $100,000 on the residents of Chester? Municipality, not the village. And I'm not convinced that putting a kitchen in this camp is going to have a broad-reaching impact like we've done with other projects, like the Chester Arts Center or the Playhouse or other big projects we've done that have a lot of programming that reaches out every year to youth and adults. I feel like this is a very niche application. I am not inclined to support a $100,000 grant to this organization, because for me, the bar is much higher than meeting the minimum criteria. And I think that this organization, although it is virtuous, it fails to satisfy me that it's going to have that broad reach in our municipality that we would expect for a facility upgrade. So I could be talked into some smaller, lower amount, maybe 30 or something, but I am not in favor, I will not support 100,000. I will vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Well, I need to know what we want to do.
Just as, in terms of, again, I feel that Councillors Bremner and Coolin just aren't, just maybe aren't, and maybe that's my fault, I maybe should have had a conversation with them when they first joined our team in the fall about at least my thoughts, because everybody, there's 7 of us here, my thoughts and my history, and the work that I've spent over the last couple of days just going through the list of projects that we have supported and using Councillor Vino's terminology. I appreciate that. Not convinced that putting a kitchen in Sherbrooke Lake Camp is broad-reaching impact to the residents of the municipality. So using that terminology, broad-reaching impact, again, I'm going to pick on a couple others. I'm going to pick on the one that I actually helped put together and craft and saw the draft before it even came to this table, and that was for Bonnie Lee, because I support that. I have a new roster that's been a resident of Bonnie Lee forever and very much embraced in the community of Bonnie Lee, and knew her mom as a board member. So I wanted to be involved in that. So I could say the same about that particular project, so just giving you a little bit of perspective. Again, fully supportive of that project. Using that terminology, it actually wouldn't have a broad-reaching impact to build that aging-in-place home at Bonnie Lee. It wouldn't. But it has a big impact. And so some of the others that I would have looked at as well over the last couple of days, and I supported all of them. One that jumped out was and again, I get it, it was economic development funding, but it's still a big grant, and we made the decision to switch from major project into economic development, and that was the Hubbard's Yacht Club with the World Youth Sailing Championships that year in 2022. Not a far-reaching impact to the municipality of Chester residents, because their whole purpose was to attract people here to take in that event. So again, when I'm discussing it with my community groups, not just in New Ross, but in terms of the municipality, and I know you've heard this from me before, fairness and consistency of decision-making. It has to be the only way that I can move forward. So those are just a couple of examples that I believed in at the time and still believe in. But again, I just think that Councillors Bremner and Coolin may not be up to speed on the ones that we've done and the reasons that we had for some of them over the years.
Okay, Andre?
Through the chair. If memory serves, the example cited by Councillor Connors of the Hubbard's Yacht Club was selected for funding through economic development because we received a presentation outlining the broad economic benefit of holding this international competition in Hubbard's. Yeah. And so therefore we chose to fund it through our economic development funds for that purpose. It wasn't because they met some minimum threshold of being a not-for-profit or whatever, and therefore could apply for this capital grant.
Okay, what do we want to do, people? Oh, sorry, Sharon.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I just wanted to comment, and we don't have this in place, but it may be something that we would want to put in the future about the percentage of budget of the entire project and what we're going to fund with these huge capital grants. Certainly Bonnie Lee Farm, some may not think it's a broad reach, although the money that we gave them is probably 5% of the budget that it cost to build that home. This is 50%, 46%. So,
But that's normal.
So, yeah, and just so we have had this discussion in the past, and so where council landed previously is that we would fund up to 70% of the total budget, up to 100,000. So that was the amount, that's what's in our guidelines right now, so that's what
Unless we
applicants were
change
going
them,
by.
it fits. So what do we want to do, people?
Actually, I just, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, that's okay. So, because I've done this research over the last couple of days, I was pleasantly surprised at some things that jumped out at me. And I appreciate that question, Councillor Church. So I did, I looked at Together We Can Community Society with the facility improvements there. Their request was 69.3%. Again, budget numbers. Hubbard's Barn, 70%. Smaller projects. Shoreham Village Senior Citizens Association for $98,694, that was just a little over 70%. So, again, we're across, so those are things that we do need to look at. But one thing I will say, though, again, one thing, I'm sure there's more, but a couple of the quotes on my page that I have from 2020 to 2021 budget year is that in the introductory remarks, which Chad used again today, grants will be reviewed based on the criteria outlined in the MODC grant guidelines. And if we're going to change that, again, I'm a firm believer in, if you're going to change the rules or move out the goalposts, you don't change them in the middle of the game.
No.
You do not change them in the
Change them
middle
for
of the
next
game.
year.
And we're in the game right now. Part of that discussion, actually, I have attributed to you, Al, and AW. On what basis, these were the projects that on that day, and this is what we're talking about right now. On what basis would we deny? So from here, we need to have a real reason. It can't be the color of the ink that the application's written on. It can't be the fact that it's a kitchen and not a trail. It has to be based on something, because if not, we're just gonna be picking our favorites. And you can't, that's unmeasurable. That's not acceptable to me.
Andre?
Thank you. On what basis do we deny? It's an excellent question, isn't it? Well, when minimum thresholds of eligibility are met, that's not an automatic yes. Otherwise, it wouldn't have to come to this table. Staff would make the decision. The reason why it comes here is because we have a way of trying to assess the impact on the broader community. That is very, very hard to do from a staff perspective. That's why we have elected officials, and that's what our job is then. So we can't just say, you meet the criteria, you get the prize. Sorry. That's the way it works. And that is the basis by which we will deny. And that will be the basis by which I will make my decision on each of these grants that are here today, is trying to measure the magnitude of the give versus the impact on the broader community. Sometimes the give will be small. A community center might be asking for $8,000 to fix up something that they need fixed up. And it may be a large part of their budget, but you know that the impact as a community center is broad. They're used for many functions, for many age groups. It's very important. And a high percentage of that project total would be completely warranted and appropriate. But if it were for, say, I don't know, some other group that has a limited usage and a very small segment of the population, I would be less inclined to do so. This is the decision, this is the rationale that's led me to my position on this at this point. It's not that I don't see the virtue in this organization, I do, but I feel like for the ask of $100,000, the benefit, the magnitude of the benefit to the broader community is reduced compared with some of our other major capital grants that we've offered in the past. I just don't see the wide reach of the programming. And in fact, most of the, I would argue, much of the programming goes beyond our borders. So I would be comfortable with, say, 30 or something like that, as I said before, but to me, that's my cap, and if the motion that comes after is beyond that, I can't support it. And that's my rationale. Thank you.
So council, is somebody prepared to move anything, do anything?
Councillor Coulon was first.
Councilor Coulon.
Thank you very much, Warden. Is there a threshold of monies that, not 30, like 50, like half of what the ask is? I mean, I'm not putting it back on you.
70% is, or 75% is what our threshold is?
So that's based on the total budget that of the project, that council will fund up to a maximum of 70% or 100,000. So that's
Okay.
the kind of the goalpost that we've set.
That's the criteria that's already preset.
Yep.
And like you said, we
Right.
cannot
What we're working
change that
with today.
midstream.
So somebody can't ask for more than 70% of their budget, and they cannot ask for more than 100,000. So in this
okay.
particular
Up
case,
to
it's
speed, okay.
met that particular
Just wanted to
criteria.
be clear on that, thank you.
And we can give whatever amount we want or not.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's always our choice.
Yeah,
Those are the conditions.
Yeah, and, I mean, you know, we don't have to come to a consensus all the time on amounts, and I guess I'm pulled separate ways, because to me, any kind of organization that's consists of volunteers and, you know, not private enterprise, not that we fund that, but, you know, the world we live in is getting less and less of people that want to participate. And just to, I mean, I've known Lorraine a long time, and she's, you know, given a lot to the community here. But, you know, Andre, you know, how would you feel, I mean, I don't want to deny these people, but, you know, I understand your argument. You know, I'd like to maybe to come to some kind of compromise. You know, would you be comfortable with, say, 50 or 75,000? Or is 30 your threshold?
That's my cap.
That's your cap? Okay. Okay, I'm glad, I appreciate that, thank you.
Tina?
Thank you. So, being respectful of everybody that wanted to weigh in, I'm now going to be putting a motion on the table that we do support the applicant with their request of $100,000 through the major capital fund in this upcoming budget year.
Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that.
Discussion further? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. Community capital grants.
So we do have 3 requests, as mentioned previously. So for the last conversation, we mentioned those requirements for that 70% or the 100,000. So that is a little bit different for community capital. So we do not have a percentage of a budget that that council will fund for this particular grant. So just to let you know that. And then the other criteria that we have is that if the group does not own their facility, they're eligible for a maximum of 10,000. Or if they do own their facility, they're eligible for a maximum of 20,000. So in this particular case, with all 3 of these facilities, they are eligible up to that $20,000 amount. So, yeah, so I guess we have all 3 in here, and you can see the amounts that are requested and their projects that each of them have outlined. So I'm not sure if you want to go through them one at a time.
Well, I don't know what people want to do. Andre, sorry.
I am very familiar with all 3 of these facilities. They're excellent facilities, well-run. 40s Community Center, that's a small ask for a very big facility.
Big, yeah.
They have stuff going on there all the time, lots of use, no issues from me on that. New Ross Farmers Association, this is for their fairgrounds. Their fairgrounds is a unique facility in our municipality. It's the only one of its kind. It's a real success story, and it continues to get better every year. And I was out there to the fair last summer. It was great. Watched some horses pull some weights around or something. It was great. And Ocean Swells, I feel like they've got a new board in place now, and they're really on the upswing. They're starting to build their community center back up. I have no problem supporting all these grants in the amounts requested. I would move that.
I'll second that
We
motion.
fund that.
Moved and seconded. Discussing on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. I don't know if you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Remo budget. I think.
Would you like me to discuss this one? Council, we've had a couple of discussions around this table regarding the REMO budget. So this year there were, initially at the REMO Advisory Committee, there were 2 options that were presented. One option was, it consisted of sort of our status quo program, which in this case is the REMO manager plus the 1 additional staff member, so a coordinator, an emergency management coordinator. So that was the first option that was discussed. There was a second option that was put forward, in part due to concerns largely from our council, regarding the value of that and the service level with just 1 additional staff and the need to do more local work. So there was a second option that was presented that would see 1 manager and 3 emergency management coordinators. There was discussion at the REMAC Advisory Committee about that, and that there was concerns that that was more than was seen needed by some of the municipal units. It would have been the way it would have broke down was one of those emergency management coordinators was paid or dedicated to us in Chester. 1 was dedicated to Model, and the 3rd position would have been shared between the 3 towns, Mahone Bay, Lunenburg, Bridgewater. We had a mayors and wardens meeting. There was a discussion at that meeting to potentially come back to the REMO Advisory Committee with an alternate. And so the CAO sat down and worked on an alternate proposal. That was presented to the REMO Advisory Committee, and a motion was made by that committee to support a 3rd option, a 3rd recommendation. That 3rd recommendation that's in front of you today for consideration is the option 1, so the status quo, a manager plus an EMC, and then an additional 0.3 position. And so in this situation, in this option, Chester would hire a full-time emergency management coordinator and charge back a 1/3 of that position, 0.33 of that position. So a 33% of that position would get charged back to the emergency management, to REMO. So we would all contribute to the cost of 1.33 additional positions in addition to the manager. And then, but the full cost of that would be borne by Chester Council. So that's the recommendation that's in front of you today.
And just to say, this has been a long process. And, I think that this is a compromise that works for all parties. And REMO, I know not all the councils have necessarily passed it yet.
Yeah.
But it was a unanimous vote of all the members there to recommend this to their municipal units. So I think we're a lot farther along than we were before.
Yeah, just so it's clear, this means that our, what REMO would charge us is $122,311 for this year. And then we would be able to charge back a 1/3 of that, so $29,859, representing about 33% of the position.
Middle ground.
Middle ground.
Yeah. Somebody prepared to move that we approve it?
So moved.
Seconder?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Have any of the rest dealt with it yet?
I'm not sure, I'd have to.
I haven't.
Bridgewater passed it. Model was on their agenda on the 25th, but somehow they skipped over it.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Whatever. Okay. Lunenburg County Anti-Racism Discrimination Draft Approval, Plan Approval. On up. How's your morning going? You've been here ever since we got here at 8 o'clock.
I know. I mean, yeah. How's everyone?
Good.
That sounded sarcastic, but it's fine. I think this is my first time really presenting to this council.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give a little bit of a prologue, and especially for those listening in from community that I haven't had the opportunity to officially meet as well. but through some of the in-community days, I've had the luxury of meeting quite a few folks, which has been really helpful in shaping what you see in front of you today. So, as your local Julia Roberts, I fell in love and moved to the South Shore. Being a part of this community for over 3 years, I have been adopted by a Mi'kmaq uncle, a Hebs Cross grandma, and a sister from Treehouse community. I have found belonging in these relationships, but this is not the only reality. In this work, in my life, in the Dismantling Racism and Hate Act, recognizing that underserved and underrepresented individuals and communities in Nova Scotia experience harmful and unjustifiable inequities and disparities because of systemic hate, inequity, and racism. This is my work. This is your work. This is our work. To not only help people love this community, but to co-create a community that loves all of us back. Us being whoever you are, whatever makes you an individual, different, or unique. As we do this work of creating equity and belonging, this is not just directed at one or two groups that is often misjudged by. These are all the groups that they feel aren't reflected or taken into consideration in program development, in policy development, in procedure development, etc. As I said, this is my first time presenting to you and those listening in, which is why you get the prologue. And I just really wanted to say that I am Jem, your neighbor and your regional anti-racism and diversity coordinator. So for context, the draft plan was originally birthed from the Provincial Dismantling Racism and Hate Act, which was passed in 2022. And from there, an intermunicipal agreement was created, which will essentially create a regional plan. And that is due relatively soon, so April 1st. And in this agreement, my role was birthed. So as mentioned, the Act recognizes that underrepresented and underserved individuals and communities in Nova Scotia experience harmful and unjustifiable inequities and disparities. So in this work, we want to make sure that we're centralizing those voices, which is why what you see in front of you is a draft plan, because by the end of this week, the original committee will be formed, which has been put forward to each of the 5 councils. And once that committee is formed, then we'll have the final plan that will come back to councils for approval. We just want to ensure that we have both full voice from all of those representations, as many as we can, which will be represented on the committee, but also we want to ensure that we are following the terms of reference. So that is essentially the plan. You would have seen quite a bit in here. You would see areas of focus, which was informed through the engagement that has been done. We've heard from over 40 people. Well, that would have been over a month ago, so closer to over 50 people now. And also through conversations with staff as well. And it basically shows the approaches, which talks about social innovation, mental model shift, and it talks about the different methods in the approach on how we intend on doing this work. So it has around engagement specifically for awareness, which is overlapping with the accessibility plan, but it also has unique focuses or foci, which would be education, policy, etc. And I think the only other thing that I will note is further down in the plan, there is a page for partners. Because this work is community work, we continuously have conversations with organizations in community to ensure that we are having as much impact and far-spanning conversations as needed. So we have conversations with the libraries, with Nova Scotia Health, the schools, etc., just to ensure that we are reaching as many people as possible. And beyond that, are there any questions?
That's the big one. I see people been here a long time, they might have quieted down a little. Anybody have any questions? I mean, we're being asked today to approve the draft plan, essentially. Boys, they're a lot quieter than they have been all day.
I'll move that we recommend the draft plan.
Seconder, seconded by Clarissa. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. You're doing really good.
I like being laid down in the agenda.
Thank you.
See ya.
Oh, my. Where am I now? Okay.
10.4 verbal update.
10.4?
Libby, yeah.
Oh, shredder purchase, yeah, verbal update, yeah. Okay.
Good morning, Warden Weber and Council.
Hey, where are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm reasonably well.
Oh, I'll take that.
Yeah, I'm still sitting here alive.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. I wanted to provide a verbal update to council. Sorry, I hopped up quickly up the stairs. So funding in the amount of $2 million was approved for the purchase of a slow-speed solid waste shredder, and that was at the December 17th, 2024 regular council meeting. So based on that approval, we've conducted research on potential suppliers. And we wanted to alert you to the fact that based on the urgent need of the shredder and the, sorry, I should have brought my other glasses, and the urgent need to select the appropriate piece of equipment so that we get the best fit, we decided that the best method for procurement would be to go to an open and public procurement. So once we decided that, we were compelled by the thresholds, pardon me, of the CFTA and the CETA trade agreements to post publicly. So that means that it will also, the biggest benefit is it will get the most competition, and therefore the intent is to get the most competitive, but the best overall pricing and therefore best value. So the entire idea is to get the right piece of equipment that will do the job appropriately. And the lead times vary from 2 to 6 months. And we have identified, and I see the reactions, that's actually shorter than anticipated. Yeah.
That's
So we actually anticipated, you had the fire services earlier, and you had a brief discussion about how that can unfold. And those are high-value items. And that the lead times for those types of equipment, even for a pickup truck, if we were to replace one of our fleet vehicles, often the last 2 to 3 years, a year is completely normal. So when I found that we could get something in as little as 2 months, that might be overselling, and it might be longer, but that's extremely short. And so 6 months would be, completely acceptable. So just wanting to alert you to that information, and we're set to proceed. Everything's already loaded and ready to go, so.
Oh, can I just add one thing?
Yes.
So part of the reason we wanted to alert you to that is because at the March 13th council meeting, I think it was, that I was not in attendance for, there was a discussion around procurement, coming back to council with a report regarding sort of the tariffs and how we're going to react to the tariffs, and this shredder specifically was mentioned. What this means for this, because we've gone to open procurement, is that there is a potential that it may come back, and that, we don't know where those are going to be from. So it very well could be that we end up making the award to a provider that is a US-based company or outside of Canada. But we also know that in this type of industry, it's so complex that it may be a piece of equipment from a company from overseas that has a distributor in North America and they have representatives in Canada, so that it's very complex. But we wanted to make you aware that we're doing this before we come back with that procurement or the report around that tariffs and procurement, so.
Well, in many ways, if it comes from Canada, then they will avoid the tariffs and it should be cheaper. So it gives them.
Thank you, Tara, and that's good knowledge to have, that you're bringing us up to speed. I just have a question. What is CFTA?
Oh, my apologies.
I have to know the acronyms, I'm sorry.
My apologies,
Go ahead.
Councillor Connors.
Thank you.
CFTA is the Canadian Free Trade Agreement.
Okay.
So that is something that's been in the news recently.
Oh, yes.
That's the interprovincial, across Canada,
Thank you.
national trade agreement. So we're looking forward to those barriers being broken down. That will, help immeasurably to interprovincial, but also municipal procurement.
Thank you.
We'd love to see that, so.
All we can do is hope for the best price possible.
And the best overall value and the total cost of ownership. This is a really specialized piece of equipment, and the hope is that we get the right fit and it does what it needs to do, and then the landfill will just be a well-oiled machine, no pun intended. That's what we're hoping for, so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No other questions, right? Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, 11.1. Correspondence, John Lohr regarding minimum planning regulations, wind turbine setbacks, and we're only allowed to set them back so far, and you can argue about it if you want to, that's the way it is. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now that we have from the province this requirement to set back certain distances, are we planning a housekeeping amendment to our land use bylaw that will?
Yeah.
Yes, that was going to be my comment, is that this will probably necessitate that we go into our land use bylaw and make some
Yeah, because we have
amendments.
setback requirements for wind
Yeah.
turbines, as I
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were greater than this, I think. Yeah.
And I think there are situations, there's some where it's greater than
Yeah,
this.
I hope that when, of course, I'm not staff, but I hope that we just, instead of trying to just continue it, because sometimes the province will change these numbers. It's much easier once the province is established, they want to meddle in this, that just to point to the MGA requirement and not specifically say the number, because then we're continuously doing those housekeeping amendments to try to keep pace. It's easier just to point to the MGA and say that must be satisfied. That's my
Yeah, where
commentary.
you're right, where that exists, it doesn't always exist, but now that they're making changes, we'll
Anyway, there's nothing we can do.
come
about
back with a report
it.
on
It is
that.
what it is.
Can't wait.
Okay. 11.2, West Hands regarding MPS LUB amendments, Housing Accelerator Fund initiatives. I forget what they want.
Now, this is just for information, it's just notification that they're doing
Oh,
some
yeah, okay,
amendments.
good.
So it's just to receive it.
Okay, 11.3, the Ashpatucket Heritage Trust Community Engagement Sessions. Well, that's again. Yeah.
Correspondence to receive unless council wants to give direction.
Unless there's. I'm not hearing any direction, so it's received. 11.4, Honorable John Lohr regarding code of conduct training, as we have to do it whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I'm going, actually, sorry. I spoke to Cliff about that, because I was having trouble accessing. I registered,
Yep,
and then nothing, like it didn't direct me anywhere, or, and I think you have, Tom told me that you have to, he saw me, you have to make a new email, it's.
yeah, so you
Yeah.
have to register with, I think there was a link that was provided, you have to register, and then I think it takes 24 to 48 hours, you'll get a second email from NSCC, and then that'll guide you through the process.
So, I got that, but
I can help you, I
okay,
can take a
that's
look
great,
when you're,
okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. You just got no choice but to do it. Anyway, 11.5, Letter from John Dimick, the new 10% provincial deed transfer tax. Well, you know,
We can't help it.
that's the problem.
It's an interesting letter, though.
Oh, yeah, sure is, but just, yeah, sure. Sorry.
Councilor Weber, Gordon Weber, through you to the council. John reached out to me. I expressed he needed to extend this to all councilors. It does have an impact on us. We have a lot of larger, well-constructed, wealthier homes in the area, and people purchasing from outside of the province and the country, and it is, unfortunately, that's what's going to happen, and unless I do feel for them, it'll reduce some things and change a few things. Yeah, it's unfortunate that this is.
Yeah, just that we
going
can't
on.
do anything about
It
it.
is, but I needed to recognize that he made a valid point, and I think it was something we all needed to be aware of, and say our piece, that, you know, I don't want to see increases if I can help it, but the province is doing some things that we don't all agree with quite often lately, so,
There's quite a few things.
yeah, so thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Anyway,
Counselor Vito.
oh, sorry, Councilor
I
Baker.
believe this gentleman, during the provincial election may have had some connection to Danielle, and I believe this correspondence really belongs with her. It's her party whom he, I believe, supported that actually made these.
Do we want to forward this to her? or
These.
what? It was a copy.
And I would suggest that we respond to John and say that he might want to speak directly to the MLA, as it is their policy.
Okay, we can do that. Yep.
Warden Weber, I agree with that. I think that's a good approach to say that we're collectively wanting to move this along to the right appropriate agency and, you know, see what can happen. It's
Okay,
not-
we can send.
Yes. Thank you. That gives them further action. I appreciate that.
Okay, 12.1, community development recreation rezone. Ah,
Hello. It's okay.
now try to
It'll be okay.
try to get this through really good. You know, you're usually pretty good at it.
Me? Okay. So planning staff received an application from Upland Planning and Design on behalf of the property owner. The property is in the Sim Settlement area, just off the exit 6 on the 103. You can see the property there. So they're requesting a rezone as well as following up by a development agreement. Currently, the property is in the Settlement Residential 2 zone. That allows for commercial developments up to 2,000 meters squared by site plan and nothing larger. So the applicant, they're applying for commercial uses, including a gas station and some retail spaces. However, that is greater than the 2,000 meters squared, and that is permitted through the mixed-use zone by a development agreement. So the process forward is to rezone the property and then apply for a development agreement. The property, or the applicant, sorry, on behalf of the property owner, they submitted a grade application pretty much full, so staff will review that thoroughly against our municipal planning strategy policies. And assuming you go ahead with option 1, which is pretty much your only option, staff will do that review. We'll draft a staff report with that, as well as the amendments and the agreement, the draft development agreement, sorry. And we'll take that to the Planning Advisory Committee, and they'll provide a recommendation. The only thing prior to that, we will hold a public information meeting in the area, just to sort of get the notice out to the public.
I assume that's what we wanted to do? Oh, sorry, Tom.
I'll make that motion that we adopt. Direct staff, prepare a staff report, develop development agreement, and schedule a public information to advance the proposed development.
Anybody prepared to second that motion?
I'll second it. And then
Yeah.
speak if I have an
Okay,
opportunity.
moved and seconded. All those in favor?
I would like to speak.
Oh, speak. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. In the interchange, the Twin Highway interchange is new. I think it opened only a few months ago. And also within the last few months, we've had already one zoning issue for the Hubbard Square development. Because part of that also was in the settlement residential, whatever it is there.
This is Settlement Residential 2.
Yes, and now we have another one. I guess first a question and then follow up. Do you foresee more of these requests coming in? As you're a planner,
Are you hearing from other people?
Sure. The area is up and coming, let's say.
So,
So it's very possible, yeah.
yeah. I would suggest that at a twinned interchange at Hubbard's, which is bedroom community to Halifax, that we're gonna see many of these things. So I actually think that we should be going back and having a look at this interchange and the zoning, because this is, it's clearly not appropriate. And I do not like spot zoning. It's a problem. And I feel like we should be zoning this area properly and do it once and have the debate and then be done with it, rather than have 20 little fights as each property comes up.
Okay, that's worth, yeah.
Can Erin?
Yeah,
Sorry.
just to provide council an update on the April 10th agenda, there will be a report coming forward just in regard to that. The growth node, exists growth node, council directed staff to issue an RFP to do exactly that. And so that'll be coming forward on April 10th for recommendation for award for that work.
Okay. Moved and seconded, sorry. Oh,
Hi, Hubbard's is a hotspot. No longer is Hubbard's a quiet little sleepy, let's forget about little Hubbard's. Exit 6 is going to be the hub. It's going to be alive. As far as zoning, I agree with Councillor Vino. I think we should, instead of doing a zoning group individually here and then moving forward, and then 2 years from now or 6 months from now, a developer comes in and says, I wish to rezone this. I feel that we might as well get ahead of what the requests are going to be.
yeah.
And good luck to me. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I am. District grants. Now, we have a variety of them.
No worries. Yeah, so, so as part of your council package, there were 6 district grants that were presented. And then since the time the council package was put together, there was an additional 2 that came in, and they were placed on your desk this morning, so that.
One for the Chester Basin Legion and one for,
That's correct, yeah. So those 2 additional ones are on your desk.
so do we want to talk about them all separately, or do we want to approve them?
They're always at the end of the package, like the book of Revelation, and I always feel the same when I read it. So, I say just approve them. Yeah, there's somebody else that's.
Moved, seconded, that we approve all the requests. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Well, I mean, like, it's, unless you hit specific issues.
Are we, goodness, are we just moving on, because we have that,
Oh,
There's 2 more items still, and then the one you added.
yeah, we still got other agenda items first, Jeff. Okay, increased funding for IT reserve.
Morning, Council. I have a couple, what I would consider low-level items for you today, but being that this is the last meeting of the current fiscal year, needed to make sure we had specific council approval of some things that are going to impact the current fiscal year. The first one is about the IT equipment reserve. Basically, this is a reserve that is used to smooth the costs of IT equipment, in particular endpoint, laptops in particular, as well as server infrastructure. And these are things that need to be life cycled every 5 or so years. And rather than having a spike in costs every 5 years for each of these things, we have a reserve that we contribute to a relatively consistent amount in order to make sure that those things are funded. Since the 17-18 year, the IT equipment reserve was funded at a flat amount of $34,150 annually. Last year at budget time, I came to you and said, hey, it looks like costs are going up a little bit. I think we should start increasing this by CPI. That was approved at the time. This year, with the new estimates for the server infrastructure that's coming through, realizing that costs have inflated even beyond previous expectations, It's a fairly minor adjustment I'm proposing making, is saying that we kind of backdate the CPI adjustments back to that 2017-18, and make a one-time contribution to make up for the difference in what those numbers would have been. So that's that table at the bottom of the first page of the RFD here that shows the annual contribution that actually happened and then the recommended adjusted contribution. It all adds up to $20,722. I'm proposing that that you would approve an additional contribution during the 24-25 fiscal year in the amount of
And we have it in the
$20,722.
budget.
This would be above the budget, which is why I'm coming to you specifically for this request.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got no choice. Well, I shouldn't say.
Well, the other option would be to continue at the rates that we previously approved and then find other ways to fund the incremental difference.
Okay, Andre?
I feel like this is a bit of a shell game here because, you know, the idea if we don't put enough in reserve, then if we have a capital cost for IT that exceeds our reserve, then we'll have to take it out of operating, I presume. So instead, we just take it out of operating now and anticipated that we may have a capital cost that exceeds our reserve. So like, why?
Essentially, you're not wrong. It's in order to have that impact hit this fiscal year rather than a future fiscal year, where there is an expected surplus in the year, it's not going to
It's
impact.
coming out of this year's budget.
Yeah, this is specifically about the budget for the year that ends in 3 days.
And
4 days.
as I recall, on our first foray into the budget, we were having troubles making the budget work. I'm quite happy to push this off for another year. If we don't need to throw another $20,000 in, you know, into this reserve, at this point, I don't see any reason to do it this year, frankly. You know, if in a year or 2 years, we need an extra 20 grand, then we'll take it from operating then. We may not.
But this is coming out of this year's budget.
Right,
Not-
so basically the difference, and this is
This has
in
no
relation
impact
to
on next year.
a capital expense that will be spent in the coming fiscal year, and that it will impact 25, 26. And the difference here, if you do this transfer, is that amount of money goes into the IT equipment reserve. If you don't,
Need
then
to
the
raise
surplus
it
for
next
the,
year.
then the surplus for the year is increased by that same amount, which means essentially the difference is, does it go to the general operating reserve or does it go to the IT equipment
Oh, I
reserve?
see.
That's only the real difference.
Okay.
Because at year end, our surplus
I
goes to
mistook.
general
I
operating.
thought that we were suggesting we do this for the coming budget.
No,
No.
this is out of surplus left over for this year.
3 days
So
left to do
there
it.
is a slight impact to the recommended contribution going forward by backdating that
All right, so
CPI.
moved.
But
Second.
Moved, seconded. Discussion, or do you want to comment? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Getting
Thank
late,
you.
people.
the next item is another thing that, again, wanted to make sure got clarified before the end of the fiscal year so that it could be recorded appropriately. This is to go along with the request from the Zoval Memorial Library back in December. So if you remember at that time, one of their trustees, as well as the new director of that facility, came in to give an update as how things are going and also make a request to forgive outstanding amounts payable. And this is based on, so because the library's finances are managed through the municipality, what we do is we pay their bills out of our operating account, and then the process was a regular recovery, transfer back from their account to ours, just kind of a temporary thing. In mid-2019, the previous director of finance noticed that a couple things. One, that they were in an ongoing deficit position from their operations, so losing money slowly over the years, and that most of their funds were locked up into guaranteed investment certificates, GICs. And so at that time, he put a pause on that transferring the money from their account back to ours. Since then, they've made some changes to how they operate. They no longer have a paid live-in caretaker, so they're actually back into they're not looking like they're doing deficits going forward anymore, and those GICs have matured, so there'd be no penalty.
So now they can cash them in.
And so, yeah, so those have been cashed out, it's just sitting as cash now. So they have a cash balance of just over $200,000. At December 12th meeting, council approved forgiving that amount outstanding, which is essentially the sum total of their operating expenses from mid-2019 to December 2024. And I just need clarity, and I know it seems like such small stuff because the numbers are very similar.
what exactly did we approve granting to them to forgive that debt? Was it exactly the amount due on December 12th, which was $149,183? Was it exactly the amount due at their fiscal year end at the end of December, because there was some reference to year end in that conversation? Or was it exactly $150,000, and just before our year end is over, I just need clarity as to how much we're doing for that?
I must admit, I don't recall. Yeah.
Thank you, Warden Weber, through you to council. I believe it was a bit of a gray number that was presented, I believe the remembrance of was up to 160 approximately. I think that's where they thought somewhere that it was gonna.
So I've reviewed back through, so the motion was to forgive an amount of around $150,000,
Okay,
because
okay.
at the time, that's, you know,
Yeah.
until I go through their year end and clean up their books, which I've just recently done a preliminary version of,
Okay.
I don't know exactly what that amount's gonna be.
Right.
So now that I've gone back and looked at it, I can say on the date that you approved it, what the amount exactly was.
What was it?
It
On
was,
that?
it was 149, 183 and 59 cents.
Well, why don't we approve that? That's it.
Okay.
So that, I will move that motion.
Discussion?
Yes, option
All
one.
those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Thank you.
You got your clarity.
Thanks, Dan.
My, oh my. Okay, I think I'm on to you and the code of conduct for presenters.
Just quickly then,
No, I'm not?
No, I was just turning his.
I was gonna say.
thank you. We have adopted a code of conduct for elected officials here, both municipally and then the province have since put one around for all of us municipalities to undertake, and I think it's great, and we're gonna receive some training on that actually from the province individually. But what I want to talk about is a code of conduct for presenters. So sometimes in the past, we have had presenters that will come during our public input session or as a scheduled presentation, and we receive personal attacks, both as elected officials and staff, which are unfounded, and personal attacks on council and staff during public input sessions should not be tolerated. You know, it's unacceptable, it's disruptive, and it casts negativity on this government. You know, I feel like we should have a policy in place that is official policy, not just a practice, that when speakers that come to council and make personal attacks, they should not be invited back. And that's what I wanted to raise here today for discussion, and I'll leave it at that.
I wonder, is there any other municipal unit that has a, just because it's always nice to look at somebody else as if they have it in place, so you aren't starting from scratch, that's all.
Yeah, we would have to look and see. I know there are ones that have, there are municipal units that have guidelines or standards of engagement for members of the public, so we would have to take a look and see what those are.
Tina, I think Tina, and then,
Thank you. So I did have opportunity to speak to a colleague at a fellow municipal unit, and I believe that their mayor reads a statement similar to, but completely separate from the land acknowledgement statement, but a statement.
yeah.
I believe that's what they told me, that their mayor reads a statement at the start of the council meetings, and that I think only included staff in the statement, but it could be expanded. But I have not had chance to speak with Tara, because they suggested that just to speak to my CAO, to speak to their CAO possibly and get a copy of that, but that's not a policy, it's just a statement that was read. So
Well,
that's a starting point
The
too.
starting point, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Clarissa?
Thank you. As far as asking them not to come back, I mean, they should be immediately asked to leave. It's not a question of, you know, if they're being derogative, any type of faction that's considered a bullyism, or they should be immediately asked to leave. You know, whether or not we.
Which I've done in the past.
Yes, whether we approve at this point to have them never attend another meeting, if I believe what Tina had mentioned, if there's an opportunity to set the precedent, that might be a great opportunity for the warden to have a verbal statement. I think that would be something we might want
To
to
start,
report to.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I have thrown people out. Yeah. So, if-
Maybe not often enough. So it's not uncommon when we have, like, issues of land use control, or if a development agreement comes before council, to have, for example, a member come up and, under public input and, accuse someone of being in some sort of conflict, or like that they somehow, are taking bribes from a developer or whatever. Those sorts of accusations do nothing to help us with decision-making. All it is disruptive and disrespectful, and it has no place here.
Yeah.
And if people are gonna continually come to meetings and make those kind of unfounded accusations, then they should never be asked to come again, frankly, and, because there's no reason for it. I will, personally, if it happens anymore, I will make a really big deal about it, because it's wrong. There are mechanisms, if such accusations were actually true, there are tools at their disposal.
there's methods for them to do that.
To address them, but coming and making unfounded accusations to staff and council for things that they're just lies, that's wrong. It does nothing to help our government make decisions.
Tom?
Thank you, Warden Weber, through you to the council. This is an important topic. I think we all have experienced this as a new counselor. I have witnessed some things that I don't appreciate. I think this goes both ways, though. The council has to do a better job of managing it, and I request that to be always considered, which I do respect. But we have to know that everyone gets passionate, and this takes a special skill in this world today, that as a leader of an organization or a counselor, and I'm not isolating those, I'm just saying, we have to know when passion of someone is real, and we have to know when someone is very much attacking staff, or attacking counselors, or attacking warden, and I don't want that tolerated, because that's not what I'm going to do to others. And I will meet with anyone at any time, speaking as a representative for District 3, but I've made it very clear there are so many issues and so many things. I assure you, we're going to talk about them all from my position. Don't know the results. I want to work with council, but I also want to work with the public that have, in the past, been too strong in certain things, and I appreciate that they're passionate, but we need to balance. I agree with the comments being said here. We come as 7 individuals and staff that do every day try to get up and do the best we can. I feel sad for a number of our staff that have been approached in an inappropriate way, both privately and publicly, and I think we have a lot of things to review and look at to make it both streamlined, to better improve it, to modernize it, and to move forward in a collective way. Thank you.
Clarissa?
Thank you. The definition of passionate, and the strength behind those words is one thing, but you have to be respectful. All of us in this room have to continue, and we all have to do we have to do the code of conduct. We're all entitled, we have to do that by first week in April. So if we're going to abide by those rules and regulations, then we should expect that the general public will as well, that we should have a code of conduct, and they should abide by the same ruling, and verbally attacked is not acceptable. So passion is one thing, but you can be respectful at the same time as putting your point across, whether or not you agree with what you're presenting, or who you're presenting it to. Thank you.
So why don't we get staff to take a look at what other municipalities have possibly in place, plus what you mentioned about the statement at the beginning of the meeting, and go from there. Just take a look at who's got what, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We all good with that?
I actually would like a motion. I will make a motion that we direct staff
Okay.
to prepare a policy.
Second? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, council, we have a variety of in-camera matters, but I'm going to take a 10-minute break before we do it.
Do you want to make the motion to go into camera?
I'll make the motion to go in, oh, I can't.
Okay. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Now we're on to take a 10